Record numbers with more than 36 million ballots already cast for this year's midterms, and that is far more than the 2014 midterm early voting numbers. But which party stands to gain the most from the enthusiasm? Here now to weigh in is Republican strategist Justin Wallen. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So let's take a look at those numbers as you discuss them. We mentioned over 36 million early votes have been counted, and these numbers are according to our brain room here at Fox. Only 21 million early votes back in 2014. Currently, 42% are Democrats, 36% of early voters Republicans, and 22% either independents or another party. So taking a look, that's how it stands right now. Who do you think this will impact the most, and do you think those numbers will change?
Yeah, this is one heck of a year, isn't it? I mean, everything is different. The short answer is I think that it's going to impact Republicans the most in a positive way. It's disproportionately going to affect Republicans in a positive way. The funny thing about all this is historical rules of thumb are almost out the window. I mean, typically in midterms, Republicans do better, except if Republicans won the presidency, and then Democrats will do better. And now we have this huge wave of turnout, and I think that earlier in the year, and certainly the turnout numbers in the primary suggested that Democratic voters were extremely enthused. I think they hit their apex early on in the year. I think those who are extremely enthused continue to vote. They were voting early. And then Kavanaugh happened, and Republican enthusiasm spiked right about the point when early voting became possible. And that's what we're seeing in these numbers, and I think it allows Republicans to catch up on that curve and catch up on that arc and potentially surpass.
And we were talking about the latest news coming out of the Kavanaugh investigation, and another woman coming out and saying that she lied. And do you think that will impact voters as, you know, not early voting but heading to the polls today?
Without question. So this is the point where that momentum needs to be gained or continued throughout actual election day, because early voting, that takes a certain kind of galvanization, but to get people to physically go to the polls and vote, which is what today is all about. It's not about putting a stamp on a mail ballot. It's about getting to the polls. That takes a certain degree of enthusiasm. What's going on right now with the new Kavanaugh information, I think without question is going to re-galvanize those Republican voters who haven't already voted to get to the polls.
Well, and also important to point out, when you talk about the early voting, Republican-affiliated voters have outpaced Democratic-affiliated voters in Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Indiana, Montana, Tennessee, and Texas, all states where President Trump recently has campaigned. I want to ask you about third-party candidates, though, as we head into today. Could that tip some of the midterm outcomes, the third-party candidates?
Without question. And when we start looking at these particular races, they're really, really close. So everything that we're talking about is it's almost conjecture because the polls are so very, very close. But we do know that libertarian candidates, third-party candidates, tend to historically chip away at Republican candidate capabilities. And we've seen that in Indiana, Montana, where the pendulum seems to be slightly tipping towards the Democratic candidate. And again, in those races, there's a third-party candidate, it's libertarian, adversely affecting the Republican. But again, the margin of error the gap in these races is within the margin of error. It's very, very close. So this is the sort of thing where turnout, and the sort of thing that we're seeing now, could very well flip that around and close the gap. We'll just have to see as the day goes along.
Well, we know so far that turnout has increased the most among younger voters, among minorities, among people who rarely or never vote. We'll see if that remains the same throughout today. Thank you so much for joining us, Justin. We always appreciate it.
I thank you. God bless you, and may he continue to bless the nation that has showered this land with love for more than 2 centuries. Thank you all. God bless you all.